it's Kristy. Today I bring to you a very important topic. Who in Harry Potter is an anti-vaxxer? Now, before I start, I just gotta quickly give credits. As you can see, I love Nicole Raffi, and she recently made a video called Who on Euphoria is an Anti-Vaxxer. She spelled her own name wrong in the video. That's a bit of an inside joke there. That's why I spelled it wrong there. But I love her, and watching this made me think I want to do that, but with my favorite franchise. Because Harry Potter is a magical world and it's very different to Euphoria or, you know, the real life world, we have some ground rules. And the first is that magic doesn't really matter in this, as in magic exists, but it can't cure COVID, because otherwise it just kind of turns into a whole mess. We want to just talk about the vaccine, not like if they could just do another spell and not have to get the vax, you know? So just disregard all of that. Pretend like the vaccine is the only thing that could help with COVID, and that also COVID could affect wizards. And also, obviously, because Harry Potter is such a big franchise and it's got such a long timeline to it, there will be different answers depending on which year we're looking at. And also, we're just going to assume for all the students that we're talking about at Hogwarts, they can just get the vax at the hospital wing whenever they want, and Madame Pomfrey will just do it. Because I feel like if it's a whole thing that they have to go to Hogsmeade for, and it's like a lot more effort than that, it's going to be a lot more complicated. So we're just making it simple. And I'll try and stay canon, but honestly, I can't tell the difference between headcanon and canon anymore because it's been so long, but they're basically the same thing at this point anyway. So also, this is just for fun. Please don't come at me. I know that this whole topic of the vaccination and COVID and all of that is a little bit delicate. I'm just having fun. I am vaxxed, double shot. I can't get my booster yet because I got COVID kind of recently, but I will be getting my booster when I can. I'm not telling anyone what to do. You do what's best for you and we'll all live our lives, hopefully. Anyway, so we're going to start with, I feel like the obvious choice is to start with Harry Potter, but I think I mentioned this in an earlier video. I read All the Young Dudes kind of recently. Not that recently, to be honest, anymore, but it's still in my head, always, constantly. I can't stop thinking about it. If you don't know, All the Young Dudes is basically a really, really popular fanfic about the Marauders era, and it's really, really good. It's canon compliant, and it basically just follows them all the way from year 1 of school all the way up till year 5 of Harry's school year, which, where we all know a certain something happens. But it doesn't happen in the fic, which is good. It stops just before that. And it's basically the TV series that we've always wanted about the Marauders, but in a fanfic form. It's really, really long, so it does take a while to get through, but it's so fucking good. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is we are going to start with Remus Lupin, because he's the main character, obviously. And now Remus Lupin, listen, hear me out, alright? Remus would not be vaccinated, but listen, hear me out. Don't get mad. He's a werewolf. Even though he's a werewolf and it probably means that he's immunocompromised, I actually don't know what it would mean to be a werewolf, but I feel like he does get sick a lot more during when he's not a wolf. So he probably should get the vax, but also, especially in his teenage years, that's what I'm talking about here. I know for a fact that there would be zero research done about the COVID vaccine with werewolves because no one actually cares about the werewolves. The only research that would have been done about werewolves back then would have been all the negative stuff and like how bad they are, and no one would have cared enough to see if a werewolf should or should not get the vaccine because no one wants them to live. They kind of want all the werewolves to die out anyway, so they wouldn't care enough to research to see if the vaccine is safe for them. Anyway, moving on from that, Sirius Black. Sirius, on the other hand, I know for a fact would be fully vaccinated and boosted only purely because of the fact that his family is anti-vax. That's it. That's the whole reason. You best believe that as soon as Sirius heard that his parents were anti-vax and that they would hate for him to put a vaccine into his pure blood system, he immediately tried to get every single shot that he could. Obviously, I'm talking about teenage Sirius. We all know that if it was during Harry's time, obviously he wouldn't have gotten the vax because he would have been a literal war criminal running away from the law. And I don't think the COVID vax would be even on his top 20 of his priority list. And also, I don't know where he would get vaxxed without having to, it just wouldn't have been worth it at all. He also was like isolated for most of the time anyway, because he was hiding in Grimmauld Place. So, you know, that's kind of sad when I think about it. On a more cheerful note, James Potter. James Potter would also be fully vaxxed and boosted purely because his parents are old as heck. And also, he loves his parents and he would do it for them because he wouldn't want his parents to get sick, and we love that for him. Anyway, we're on to Peter Pettigrew, a little rat, a little sneaky rat. Sneaky Rat would be double vaxxed. No booster shot, only because that's the bare minimum. He is actually secretly terrified of the vaccine. I would know, I interviewed him personally. Despite him being really scared of the vaccine, He is more afraid of losing his friends and missing out on activities that he wouldn't be able to go to unvaxxed, like Hogsmeade or whatever. But also saying this, I do feel like Remus would have gone to Hogsmeade anyway because James has an invisibility cloak, so I know that they would have sneaked him in anyway. But at least Remus had a really valid excuse, and Peter doesn't really want to be labelled as different from James and Sirius because they're cool and he wants to also be cool, but he would never get the booster shot. Unless it becomes mandatory. And then he probably would, because he's too scared to go against it. Anyway, now that we have the Marauders out of the way, we have Harry Potter. Harry Potter! Harry, you're a wizard. I think that Harry would be half vaxxed. Hear me out, alright? The only reason that he would only have one dose is not because he's against the vax, but purely because he has other things on his mind and keeps forgetting about it, you know, such as like Voldemort trying to murder him every single year of school. I feel like when he's literally in direct danger and has people coming after him to try and murder him all the time, his brain is more focused on the immediate threats and not like the potential of getting a virus. And so he'll just keep forgetting about it. Now, you may ask, well, if he keeps forgetting about it, how did he get his first dose? Now, here's what I think happened. I know, because I interviewed them all personally, myself. And here's the story. So Mrs. Weasley took all of the kids to get their first dose while they're on summer break, but Harry wasn't with them because he was at the Dursleys, as he has to be every single summer. A few weeks later, by the time that they're trying to get their second dose, Harry is now with them at the Burrow, and so Mrs. Weasley takes him along with all the kids and they get the second vax while Harry gets his first. But then, as soon as he got back to Hogwarts, he completely forgot about getting a second shot, and everyone else just kind of assumes that he'd be fully vaxxed and like someone would be taking care of him because he's Harry fucking Potter, and no one ever questions it. Now, Ron Weasley, our king, is double vaxxed, as I just said, because Molly took all of the kids to get vaxxed together, like I said. Obviously, all the kids that are with her, like Bill and Charlie, probably figured it out on their own. And it was a whole family day trip event. It was a whole thing, trying to get everyone together and organized and out the door at the same time. And Fred and George told him that his face was going to turn purple after the vax, and even though he didn't actually believe them, because they've pranked him enough at this point, he also, like, is kind of secretly scared. And all the Weasleys got ice cream after the second dose, with Harry, who got a chocolate and raspberry ice cream with chopped nuts. I personally asked him himself. That's how I know. Actually, no, I was there. I was there when that happened. I was watching. I worked the ice cream shop. That's how I know exactly what ice cream he got. Anyway, Hermione Granger. Good old Hermione. Hermione's a really smart witch, and so I feel like she would be fully vaccinated and boosted. She'd be up to date on all of it. And I also feel like she'd be a massive pro-vax advocate. She would do a lot of research about it and like just spend all her time with people telling them about all the recent research she's done about COVID and the vax, to the point where people are like, shut the fuck up, we get it. And she was mortified to find out one day that after all of her ramblings, Harry Potter, one of her closest friends, was not fully vaxxed. So then she obviously immediately made sure that Harry got both of his doses ASAP. And she was also internally guilty that she didn't pay close enough attention to those closest to her, even though she was telling everyone else to get vaxxed. And also for forgetting that Harry didn't have his parents to take him. People just kind of like keep forgetting that Harry doesn't have parents, and then they're like, oh shit, no one's taking care of you. And then they get really worried for him sometimes. And that person this time is Hermione. It's actually always Hermione, to be honest. Let's be real. Anyway, we're on to Hagrid. Love Hagrid, but unfortunately, he is not vaxxed. This is basically the same reason as Remus. It's because he's a half giant. And also, there is no research that's been done on the vaccine's effect on giants. He's also only half human, which is even worse than Remus, because Remus is like at least, I think he's fully human. I actually don't know. I feel like he's fully human and he only changes into a wolf once every month. Whereas Hagrid is just constantly half human 24/7. And I feel like he probably can't get COVID anyway, since he is only half human. Like, I know animals and stuff can get COVID, but like a giant is giant. And I feel like it would take a lot more to hurt him than it would a human or like any other normal creature. So I feel like COVID wouldn't do anything to him anyway because he's so big, right? Like, it would take something a lot bigger. But that being said, if Albus told him that he should get it, he probably would, because he is Dumbledore's bitch. Fred and George Weasley, our favorite twins. They are, I mean, as I said, they're both double vaxxed. They got double vaxxed over the summer with the whole family, and they never found time to get the booster during the school year. They're probably too busy with like pranks and other things. I feel like that applies to like all of the Weasleys. Once their parents weren't there to take them all at the same time, they kind of all just forgot about it, to be honest. And here's the thing, they actually didn't have any side effects at all, but they did greatly exaggerate and tell elaborate stories of how they almost died from the vaccine. And each time it gets more and more ridiculous, to the point where people were more reassured of the vaccine because of how dramatic they were being, which was probably what they intended anyway to begin with. Anyway, Draco Malfoy. Honestly, my absolute favorite character. But I am sorry to say, he is not vaccinated. Here's the thing though, He secretly really wants to be vaccinated, not because he actually cares about COVID or anything, but because his father, Lucius, is extremely anti-vax. You know, the whole gotta keep the bloodline clean. That was actually a thing on TikTok, by the way. All the anti-vaxxers were calling themselves purebloods, so I feel like this actually isn't that far from the truth, where the purebloods would be really anti-vax. And Draco wishes that he could take a stand against his father, but he can't. I mean, at least the teenage him in Hogwarts can't anyway. I feel like adult him wouldn't care as much. I mean, Lucius would literally be in prison, so it would be a very different story. But this is teenage, tiny little Draco, and he just would be too scared. He hasn't gone through his whole character arc yet. Plus, Lucius would probably easily have access to the ministry records to know if Draco had gotten vaxxed, and it's too much of a risk. Which is fair enough. Neville Longbottom. Neville is a good boy. He is fully vaxxed, and he has this booster shot because he loves his grandma. And his grandma is old as heck. And also his parents, Frank and Alice, are in hospital, and he visits them quite often. And he figures, well, if I'm going to go to a hospital all the time, I might as well get vaxxed, you know? But the thing is, his grandmother is not vaxxed. She's actually really anti-vax, despite Neville being worried for her and saying that she should probably get it. But she's old. She's been around for some time. She's a badass bitch who's looked after herself for so long. And she hates the ministry. And she's one of those old ladies that don't believe in like modern technology or anything. So she thinks that COVID is just all a ministry created hoax. And she doesn't think that the ministry should have a right in what she chooses to put in her body, which is kind of fair enough. And she also knows that she's a badass bitch and that she probably won't die from COVID even if she gets it, because she's been alive for so long and she's gone through far worse. Like literally an aura was sent after her and I think she knocked him out unconscious. So she knows she's a badass bitch. If she's capable of that, I feel like she'd be like, oh, COVID can't kill me, you know? Luna Lovegood. Luna is also not vaccinated, but only because she literally doesn't know that we're in a pandemic, because the only news source that she consumes is the Quibbler, and the Quibbler doesn't mention anything about COVID. And every time that she hears someone talking about the pandemic, she thought that they were just saying it as like a metaphor for life or something. I actually was privileged enough to get a direct quote from her. She said, but when you think about it, aren't we all really in a pandemic? And we also have Hermione on record saying, yes, Luna, that's what we're trying to tell you. And she seemed pretty frustrated, so I added a frustrated Hermione. Probably that she's frustrated, not probably that she said that, because I interviewed them personally myself. But Luna just doesn't really get it. She's off in her own little head, and you know what? Good for her. Albus, Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore. Little dumbly old dumb. Dumbledore is also not vaccinated. Honestly, the people of Hogwarts need to get it together, because this is actually kind of bad. Dumbledore, he's old. He's like very, very old. I think he's like he's definitely over 100, right? So he probably should be vaccinated, and he tells everyone that he's vaxxed, and he encourages other people to get vaxxed as well, because he thinks that that's what he probably should say. But he's a hypocrite. Who would have known? To be honest, he's not really anti-vax or anything. He just like can't really be bothered. His hubris is too great, and he thinks that he's too powerful to get COVID, and he has more important things to do, like, you know, Dark Lords and shit. And ironically enough, you know who has the exact same mindset? Voldemort himself. Wow, what an ironic twist. Little moldy old Voldy also thinks that only normal civilians could get COVID, and that he's too powerful and he's too great, and you know, he's the almighty Dark Lord. Like, of course he's not gonna get COVID, and even if he does, nothing's gonna happen to him, so why would he care? He also doesn't care about other people at all. But the difference between Voldemort and Dumbledore is that Voldemort is actually right. His body was literally reborn out of dark magic and Peter's right arm. So I feel like he has surpassed humanity and all living things and COVID and, you know, the pandemic in general. I feel like he's just a whole other breed at this point. COVID can't even touch him. Whereas I feel like Dumbledore could actually probably get COVID because he's still human and he's really old. Voldemort's old as well, but he's not as old, first of all. And also, is he really old? Because his body isn't. And with that irony, we come to the end of our PowerPoint presentation today of who in Harry Potter is an anti-vaxxer. A scientific presentation by Kristy 1. That's me. I'm Kristy 1. Please let me know who you think would be vaxxed and not vaxxed in Harry Potter, because I'm actually really interested. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. This really took me back to my high school presenting days, honestly, putting a presentation together at 2 a.m. and then presenting it the next day. I hope you guys enjoyed. And with that, I will see you all next time. Bye!